Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I'm going to give you a look at the Science of Climate Change, a hands-on course by Blair Lee. So every summer, we homeschool year-round. Every summer we pick specific units of study. So we do math and some form of language arts, and then we bring in a specific unit. So June and July, we usually do something different. June, we have decided to do climate change, and this was at the request of my oldest daughter. She's very passionate about the environment and animals, and climate change is a concern for her. So she wanted to learn more about it. So it's definitely a topic we've covered. We cover social justice issues in our homeschool, so we've definitely covered climate change. We've covered it with Little Justice leaders in the past. We also talk a lot about it in core knowledge science. We just this year for 5th grade did renewable and non-renewable resources and looked at a bunch of different options for that. So I feel like they have a good background knowledge. So I'll be doing this with my 11-year-old and my 7-year-old this summer. And again, we're going to do it in the course of a month. So we're going to do over June, and I'm going to show you inside it and give you an idea of kind of how I'm going to use it. And I think this will be helpful because there aren't videos really showing you the inside of it, and I was looking at it online and I was wondering, is this something that would work well for our homeschool? So I did order the physical copy just because I'm a person that prefers physical books over PDFs. I have so much PDFs, and you can buy it, and of course it's cheaper. I bought this during their sale, and also if you buy anything from the Secular Eclectic Academic website that they publish themselves, it's free shipping. So I figured it was on sale, free shipping, might as well buy it, the physical copy, because I do prefer that. I will say there was an issue with shipping with that, but I contacted them about not receiving my item, and they immediately responded and shipped it 2-day priority mail. So I can't say enough about it. I think it says a lot about a company when, mistakes happen. That's human. But how they react and, make amends for those mistakes, I think is important. So I really appreciate that they got this out to me right away, and I didn't have any issues getting a hold of them. So that is something to say about their website. It was the first time I purchased something physically from them. I've purchased things digitally from them, and I think they do a lot of digital downloads and things like that. But this is the first time I physically got a copy, and I have to say I think they handled the situation very well. So I'm going to turn you around and show you kind of inside it and my plans for it. So this is the physical copy. Now, one thing you can download, and I'll link it down below when you go to purchase it, there is a sample schedule of how you could use this or bring in different subject areas while using this, and it gives you an outline of a project-based, a short-term project, which I think is really awesome. So you're presenting the idea of climate change is an issue, what can we do about it? So I really like this aspect of it, and it does give you an example of kind of how you could relate different subject areas. So art, make activist art. For civics, look at the Paris Accord. Solar and wind legislation. History, look at the Industrial Revolution today. So again, we've definitely touched on these topics, both with core knowledge, history, and our social justice. So I'm not going to actually do this section of it, but I do think it's a good example of how you can bring in multiple areas into this topic. So here it gives you a project outline. So I do like this. So the greenhouse effect, the link between the greenhouse, week 3, week 4. So develop an action plan for how you can minimize your contribution to global warming. I think it's really important, especially when we're talking about this, not just to cover what it is and what's the issues with it, but what we can do as individuals to help in the situation. I think that's essential when we're talking about any type of social justice issue, anything wrong. What, as we putting the power in ourselves, what can we do to promote positive change? So I think that's really important. And this, I do like at the end how she gives an example of a project schedule. So again, she has the book, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. You could be reading this alongside this. My oldest has already read the book, and we've actually watched the movie as a family. So we're not going to do that aspect of it, but I think it is a good tie-in. I might tie in a separate book when we actually do that. I'm still in the research phase of that. But I think that's a good example of tying in other areas. And it gives you, Monday through Friday, what you can do for 4 weeks. We're not going to follow this schedule just because, again, we've covered certain areas that it talks about before. I do like the idea of having field trips, so visit a greenhouse. One of them is visit a car manufacturer or a dealership and look at hybrid cars. And my husband actually has a hybrid car, so we're going to go through that and actually, open the hood and talk about the mechanics behind it. But I do like that it has that. It also has an opportunity for writing. I think this is really important for my oldest to be applying some of those skills. So especially since this is a passion area for her and activism is something she wants to go into, conservation in the future, that she needs to know how to take data, analyze data, and write a paper about it. So I think that's really helpful. Talking about documentaries you can watch. So it does give you some basic ideas of how to implement it if you need that. Again, I'm going to pick a few things out of the suggestion and add it in, but mainly we're just going to do that. We do keep it a little lighter during summer. And again, I don't think we need a full, this isn't lasting the entire year. So we're doing a smaller unit of it. So you can see Blair Lee has all these publications. I do like her. I've listened to her podcast. I'll link it down below. I've really enjoyed what she said on that. I've also watched her on the C conferences over the years. So I really do respect her opinion and her thoughts when it comes to this. So here is the table of contents. So you can see it's in 4 parts, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's exactly how I'm gonna break it up. So for 4 weeks, week 1, we're gonna do part 1. I'm going to show you how I break that up as well. One thing I really liked about that she talked in here is that 20% of the profits from this course are donated to groups working to educate others about the science, explain global warming and climate change. So, and you can suggest groups for her as well. So I really do like that this is giving back as well as educating. So climate change in 4 parts. So you can see here, part 1, the greenhouse effect. I do think this is covering, like she says in here, you have to cover multiple different areas in science when you're talking about climate change. So I think she gives a really good, thorough overview of each of those areas to bring it together to really understand climate change. So you have simple learning about something, and then you have kind of a lab. So for this, you're going to look at how many molecules are in a box, and it gives you in the appendix back here the printout for it. Now there is an option to, on the website, buy just the packet of printouts. That's not necessary if you buy the book or the course. Those are just additional. I had to look to make sure that was the case before I bought it. You don't need to buy additional things besides this. So it's a quick lab, and I really do like how she brings in math, especially for my oldest, who is not the biggest fan of math. I want her to understand the importance of using math, especially in scientific research, especially if that's a field she's interested in, real life applications of math. And then, so you can see here, a little bit of information, a lab, front and back. And then we go on to the periodic table, a little information, a lab, and I was looking through it, and there's only one thing I will need to buy that I don't already own, and there is a lab. A list of supplies, and the only thing I will have to buy is effervescent tablets. That's the only thing I'll have to purchase, but other than that, I have everything on hand. So you can see a little bit of information. We do a lab, and I was looking at them, they don't seem overly complicated. And then your lab sheet, which I think is really important, not just talking about the lab and discussing it, but actually going through and doing a lab report. Again, have some information about the sun's energy, some discussion, greenhouse gases, bring in that math calculations, and then you have your lab. And it continues on, your lab sheet, and then part 2. So how I'm gonna break it up is we're gonna do part 1 in a week. So it pretty much works out really well that we'll just do a little bit of this Monday through Friday. So we'll read through it. Monday we'll do the molecule and the calculations. Tuesday we'll go over the periodic table and a mixture of different molecules, do the lab, answer the questions. Wednesdays we'll go over molecules and energy, do the calculations and lab, and so on. You can get the point, but I think it breaks it up nicely into that. I do think we'll add some type of reader to go along with it. And then we get into part 2, global warming. Same thing, you're gonna go over some information, have a discussion, lab, calculations, And it continues on. I do like that it gives them opportunities to graph. I think that's really important, especially for younger and older learners. For my older learner, it's a little more complicated graph, collecting data. For my younger one, it's just making a simple plot graph. So I do like how it gives options for that. Look, it does work for multiple age levels. And then we get into part 3, climate change. And again, this is something we've done in Core Knowledge Science in the past, where they've actually charted temperature change and we made graphs using that information. So it's something they're familiar with, but I want them to really bring in more of the scientific method and that area of science into a dive a little deeper. So building upon the knowledge they already have and bringing that another step farther. So that is how we will handle that. And again, I like how in the end, it really puts it in your hands. So again, this is where we'll be doing looking at the hybrid or electric cars, carbon footprints, something we've talked about in Core Knowledge and Social Justice in the past. So the end is really like, the end really starts to talk about what can we do as an individual to help this crisis. And again, I think that's how bringing in the paper, or you can even have a child do a presentation about what can we do, putting the power in their hands. And then in the back, it just has the bibliography, which I think is really important whenever you have a resource, that they're citing their information. I think that's really important. And list of supplies, and then these are your different appendix. So greenhouse graph, greenhouse gases, information. Now for me, I'm just going to copy these because I will use it for my younger son in the future. I'm just gonna make copies, and that's just, I think, simpler. But I do like how the field trip to the grocery store, so you think about the food, where it came from, how far it took to get to you. Again, this is something we've talked about in Core Knowledge Science as well, briefly, but I really want to go to the grocery store and have the kids pick things out and really calculate how far they had to travel to get to us. And then, of course, you have your answer key in the back. And a glossary of terms. And it does come with a free poster that you can download as well. So that gives you a look at the Science of Climate Change, a hands-on course by Blair Lee. I'm excited to go through this with my kids this summer, and I'll update as we go through it how it went, but I think it's a really good course. I think that it's enough information to understand the importance of climate change. It's got hands-on activities that's mostly household things. You don't have to buy a lab kit or any crazy stuff like that. It's just going out there, learning, and figuring out how you can promote positive change and help with this climate crisis. So if you have any specific questions, link them in the comments below. If you have any suggested books, any readers to go with this, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear your suggestions. I do have a couple on my list that I'm weighing right now. But if you have any suggestions, please let me know. And as always, thank you for watching.